This woman simply went to the police station to do some cleaning, yet with a single glance, she spotted a critical error in the investigation. She instantly realized the police had mistaken the victim for the killer. She crossed out the suspect label and wrote victim underneath. The next day, however, Detective Dack, who was in charge of the case, flew into a rage. Who had tampered with his files? Fortunately, the station had surveillance cameras, and Ella's modifications from the previous night were all captured on footage. The chief warned her that interfering with a criminal investigation could land her in prison. Ella felt helpless. She had only corrected a mistake. How could that be considered interference? Dack was furious. He had been a cop for decades and wasn't about to let some cleaning lady tell him how to do his job. But the female chief ignored him and instead pulled out the case file, asking Ella to explain her reasoning. Ella pointed at the photo and said, "Look closely. This man was shot in the chest and died at home. The police assumed his missing wife was the murderer who fled the scene. But look at the mansion. The throw pillows on the sofa are arranged in alternating colors, and the items in the display cabinet are perfectly aligned. This homeowner clearly had OCD. Among all the curtains, only one is untied. The victim's wife would never have allowed that. So that curtain cord must have been used for something else. There's also hair stuck to the chair leg, a telltale sign of tape being ripped off. Yet the deceased husband had no marks on his wrists. That means the person who was tied up was most likely the wife. Based on these details, there was obviously a third person at the scene. The wife is just a victim. Her deduction was flawless. Just then, an officer rushed in to report that surveillance footage showed a woman entering the house. Nevertheless, Ella had still violated regulations. Dack ordered his men to lock her in the detention room. He had to admit Ella's reasoning was spot on. They would have to restart the entire investigation from scratch. Detectives found the suspicious woman in the surveillance footage from the crime scene. Despite repeated denials during interrogation, the girl had no alibi. Just as Dack and his team were about to designate her as the prime suspect, Ella spotted a second problem. This footage wasn't from the day of the crime. The female chief asked Ella to explain what was wrong. Ella pointed out that the wind in the footage was blowing from the southeast, but at this time of year, it should be blowing from the northwest. The footage was clearly from an earlier date. As for how she determined the wind direction, it was simple. There was a church in the background. Historically, priests positioned churches facing east so the sun would be behind them, making them appear more